in some whispers and some documentaries because of the nature of this case being completely unsolved, and some relatives of Buster may very well have attempted to connect themselves to the investigation or the case involving the death of Stephen Smith. So there's a lot of weird things going on here that just don't make sense.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody, where we cover murder, mystery to the missing. Stephen Smith, a 19-year-old who was murdered early on July 8th of 2015. His body was dumped in the middle of the road to make it seem like a hit and run, which originally was ruled as such. It would later be switched to a homicide, and the case would be reopened due to new evidence discovered while investigating the double homicide of the Murdaugh family. So I wanted to go over which Murdaughs have been mentioned in the Stephen Smith case and how they were actually involved in his case, whether directly or implied, and also share my thoughts on what SLED may have uncovered that supposedly links the two families and cases together. So on July 8, 2015, just after removing Smith's body from the crime scene, apparently Alex and Randy Murdaugh had showed up to the crime scene. Stephen's mother, Sandy, was there at the crime scene just after they took her son's body away, and she saw the two brothers, Alex and Randy. It's believed that they were there because they obviously have a law firm which focuses on accidents, and since in the beginning of Smith's case it was believed to be a hit and run, one would assume they were there to collect information from the highway patrol. So first, we'll talk about Alex Murdaugh and his relationship to this case. Alex is really only mentioned being at the crime scene that day.
I seen me and my daughter and my son, Chris, seen Alex and Randy Murdaugh at the scene.
Although now knowing how Alex has manipulated evidence before does make you wonder if he had any ill intentions while being at the Stephen Smith crime scene, or was he just there with his brother inquiring about the case in a professional capacity. Alex's brother Randy Murdaugh is talked about a little bit more in this case, as he did actually get in contact with Sandy Smith shortly later, offering to take Stephen Smith's case pro bono. But Sandy was confused, as Stephen Smith's death was ruled a hit and run, and there wasn't even a case yet.
And as we were on our way to the funeral home to make arrangements, and that's when Randy Murdaugh called and said, "Was that you that just passed by?" And I said, "Yeah, we just passed by." And he said, "Well, I wish you would have stopped so I could have met you." Joel said, "Hold on, Randy Murdaugh's calling." He said, "That was strange." And I said, "What was it?" He said, "Randy Murdaugh called and wants to help with Stephen's investigation." And I'm like, "What investigation?" Well, at that time they changed it so many times, but at that time we didn't know exactly what happened.
Years later, the law office of Randy claims he never reached out to Sandy, which is odd, but this wouldn't be the only time Randy Murdaugh would inject himself into this case. He would later be mentioned in some case notes when a Mr. Williams had called into the South Carolina Highway Patrol and said that his stepson, Mr. Wilson, told him that Mr. Conley and Wilson had killed Stephen Smith by hitting him with his vehicle. There's a couple of issues with this. First, the stepfather was told to call this in by Randy Murdaugh, which does raise some red flags. And also, we know now that Smith was beaten to death and not hit by a vehicle. This information was turned in around December 18th of 2015. Although, as we know, Wilson and Conley are considered the persons of interest and lived close by to where Smith's body was found. I do have to make note that the fact that Randy Murdaugh name is attached to this lead is curious. Now, the timing of this tip is interesting because in the case notes, a few days earlier, an anonymous tip was sent in and states that a Mr. Akin, Buster Murdaugh, and a black unknown male were involved somehow in Stephen Smith's homicide. Although there would be many other tips and interviews throughout the following years with people claiming they heard that Buster Murdaugh was involved.
Highway Patrol tries asking people around Hampton County about Stephen. Many people won't talk about it. They seem to be shy to be talking about it. At least that's what the reports indicate. And eventually they speak to Stephen's mother, Sandy Smith. And she says that the rumor she keeps hearing, and let me emphasize that this is just a rumor, is that it was the Murdaugh boys who are responsible for Stephen's death.
Even sometimes his brother Paul being mentioned in these interviews. At one point, even Sandy Smith wrote a letter that was dated September 28, 2016, where she was told that somebody approached a guy named Chris at his work, and this unknown person claimed that he was there when the homicide took place. He claims he witnessed Buster commit the terrible act using a baseball bat. It also goes on to say that Buster supposedly had gotten rid of his old vehicle just after the homicide, and they believe there could have been DNA still left in that vehicle. They believe the motive is that the two were in a relationship and Buster couldn't allow this information to get out. Once again, this information is considered hearsay. So we have Alex and Randy who were at the crime scene. We apparently have Randy reaching out to the family almost prematurely to take on the case. Then, of course, the allegations of Buster being involved in the homicide, even his brother Paul being mentioned. Then the case goes cold. Then you have the double homicide at the Moselle property, where somehow during that investigation, SLED found some kind of evidence to reopen the Stephen Smith case. So what is it that they found, and who does it implicate? Although Sandy Smith heard multiple things like physical evidence such as a baseball bat.
And why did they reopen the investigation?
It was something they found while they were investigating Paul and Maggie's death, was all I was told. But what it is, I do not know. At first, I thought maybe it was something on his phone, Paul's phone. And then rumor was going out, they found something on his computer, and then they found a baseball bat. But I have no clue what it is, but I know I'm going to know soon.
Honestly, this is just my speculation, but I believe the evidence found by SLED would be in the form of some kind of communication like texts or emails that discuss the Stephen Smith case by one or more of the Murdaughs. Just like how Randy Murdaugh had encouraged Mr. Williams to call in the lead about his stepson Wilson and Conley being involved, and considering they are persons of interest, perhaps there is further communication of those two that would implicate those two even more, that may have been left out in the original tip that was turned in. Or perhaps there could be things that one or more of the Murdaughs did to try and cover up something in the Stephen Smith case, but may not be directly involved. One thing is for sure, that these two families and cases are intertwined with each other. Stephen Smith's body was exhumed and examined. Reports claim his body is now back in the cemetery.
Tell us a little bit more. I do know it was a success. They said they did collect evidence. It was very good documentation, and everybody was upbeat about the information that was collected. And that's not always the situation when you exhume someone after so many years.
And hopefully justice will come soon for him and his family. So I really hope you enjoyed today's video. Please let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Please be respectful. please smash that like button. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. And thank you so much for watching.